He lived in a world of shadows and cold steel, a man who feared nothing until he met the only woman who could break him. 9 years is a long time to keep a promise in a life where people disappear overnight. He built an empire just to have a throne waiting for her, but when she finally returns, she isn't the girl he remembers, and the secret she is carrying might be more dangerous than the enemies at his gates. Please subscribe to the channel right now and make sure you watch until the very end, because the ending changes everything you thought you knew about this story. He sits in a high-back leather chair on the top floor of a glass building in Seoul. Outside, the city lights flicker, but inside, it is silent and dark. He holds a small, tarnished silver locket in his hand that he hasn't opened in nearly a decade. His guards stand outside the door, terrified of his silence, knowing he is a man of few words and even fewer smiles. He is the most powerful man in the city, but he feels like a king of nothing because his throne is empty. He remembers the way she looked at him before the sirens started screaming 9 years ago. The news comes from a burner phone on his desk that only one person has the number to. A voice on the other end says she has been spotted at the airport, looking tired and carrying only one suitcase. His heart, which he thought had turned to stone years ago, hits his ribs like a hammer. He doesn't ask questions or demand proof. He simply stands up and grabs his coat. His men scramble to get the cars ready, sensing the shift in the air. The boss hasn't looked this alive or this dangerous in a very long time. At the airport, she walks through the terminal feeling like a stranger in her own home. Her hair is shorter now, and there are faint lines of worry around her eyes that weren't there before. She looks over her shoulder every few seconds, checking the shadows for faces she doesn't want to see. She doesn't know that the most powerful man in the country is currently speeding toward her. She just wants to find a cheap hotel and disappear into the crowd. She has spent 9 years running, and her legs are finally starting to give out. The black sedans pull up to the curb with a screech that silences the surrounding crowd. People move out of the way instinctively when they see the dark-tinted windows and the sharp suits. He steps out of the car and for a moment the world stops moving for both of them. She freezes with her hand on her suitcase, her breath catching in her throat as she stares at him. He looks older, harder, and much more expensive, but his eyes are exactly the same. They are the eyes of the boy who once promised to burn the world down to keep her warm. They stand 10 feet apart, neither of them moving as the wind blows between them. He wants to run to her, but he is afraid that if he touches her, she will vanish like a dream. She wants to run away, but her feet are heavy, anchored by the weight of everything she hasn't told him. The tension is so thick that the bodyguards look away, feeling like they are intruding on something private. Finally, he speaks her name, and the sound of it makes her knees tremble. He doesn't say, "I missed you" or "Where were you?" He just says, "You're late." He reaches out and takes her suitcase from her hand, his fingers brushing against hers for a split second. The spark is immediate, a jolt of electricity that reminds them both of the fire they started years ago. She flinches slightly, a habit from years of hiding, and his eyes darken with a protective rage. He realizes then that someone has made her feel afraid while he wasn't there to protect her. He leads her toward the car, shielding her body with his own as if she were made of glass. As the door closes, he vows that no one will ever make her flinch again. They drive through the city in total silence, the tension in the back seat reaching a breaking point. She stares out the window at a soul that has grown taller and brighter since she left. He watches her reflection in the glass, memorizing every new detail of her face. He wants to ask 1,000 questions, but he is waiting for her to speak first. When she finally looks at him, there is a sadness in her eyes that breaks his heart. She tells him she shouldn't have come back, but he tells her she never should have left. He brings her to a house that is hidden deep in the hills, far away from the prying eyes of his enemies. It is a fortress made of marble and wood, surrounded by gardens that stay green even in the winter. He tells her this is her home now and that she will never have to look over her shoulder again. She looks at the luxury around her and feels like a bird in a golden cage. She remembers him when he was just a street fighter with nothing but a fast car and a big heart. Now he owns the streets, but he looks lonelier than he did when he was poor. In the kitchen, he makes her a simple meal, refusing to let the servants touch anything. He remembers exactly how she likes her food, a detail that makes her eyes well up with tears. They sit across from each other, the expensive plates and fine wine feeling out of place between two people who used to share street food. He watches her eat, noticing how she jumps at every small sound from the hallway. He realizes that the 9 years she spent away were not spent in peace. She was a hunted woman, and he wants to know who was doing the hunting. Late at night, they sit on the balcony overlooking the forest, the air cold and crisp. She finally tells him a small part of the truth, about the people she had to hide from. She doesn't mention the biggest secret yet, the one that keeps her awake at night. He listens with a grim expression, his hands clenched into fists in his lap. He tells her that he spent 9 years searching for her, putting out hits on anyone who might have taken her. He admits that he became a monster just so he could be strong enough to keep her safe if she ever returned. The next morning, his second-in-command arrives with bad news that can't wait. A rival family has heard rumors that the boss has a weakness staying at his private villa. The peace they had for one night is already crumbling under the weight of his reputation. He tells his men to double the guard and to prepare for a war if necessary. He won't let her go again, even if it means burning down everything he worked to build. She watches him from the top of the stairs, seeing the cold killer he has become, and she wonders if she truly knows him anymore. She tries to leave while he is busy with his meetings, but the guards at the gate politely block her path. She realizes she isn't a guest. She is a prize that he is guarding with his life. When he finds out she tried to go, he confronts her in the hallway, his voice low and hurt. He asks her why she is trying to run from the one person who loves her. She tells him that his love is heavy and that she can't breathe under the weight of his power. They stand in the dim light, two people who love each other but don't know how to trust anymore. A sudden explosion rocks the perimeter of the estate, shattering the windows in the foyer. He reacts instantly, throwing his body over hers and slamming her onto the floor to shield her from the glass. The silence of the hills is replaced by the sound of gunfire and shouting men. He pulls a weapon from his waistband, his face turning into a mask of pure ice. He tells her to go into the panic room and not to come out until he opens the door. For the first time, she sees the true scale of the danger she brought to his doorstep. After the smoke clears and the attackers are dealt with, he finds her shaking in the dark room. He is covered in dust and a bit of blood that isn't his, looking like a demon from a nightmare. He kneels in front of her and touches her face with a hand that is surprisingly gentle. He apologizes for the chaos, but she tells him it wasn't his fault, it was hers. She admits that the people attacking weren't his enemies, they were hers. This revelation changes everything, as he realizes he isn't just protecting her from his world, but from hers. He demands to know who she was running from for all those years. She finally breaks down and tells him about a powerful man in another country who thinks he owns her. This man is not a gangster, but a high-ranking official with resources that make the mafia look small. He realizes that by bringing her here, he has started a war with a ghost. He doesn't care about the risk. He only cares that she was suffering while he was living in luxury. He promises her that no matter who this man is, he will never touch her again. They spend the following days preparing for an inevitable confrontation that feels like a dark cloud over the house. He moves her to an even more secure location, a penthouse in the heart of the city where his men control every floor. They begin to rediscover the small things they loved about each other, like the way they both take their coffee. There are moments of tenderness where the years melt away, and they are just two kids again. But the reality of their situation always comes back, usually with a phone call or a report of a sighting. She starts to notice that he isn't just a boss. He is a provider for hundreds of families. She sees the way his men look at him with a mix of fear and deep respect. He isn't the villain she thought he might have become, but a man who carries the weight of the world on his shoulders. She begins to feel guilty for bringing her trouble into his organized life. She considers leaving again in the middle of the night to save him from herself. But every time she looks at his sleeping face, she knows she can't leave him a second time. One evening, while he is away on business, she receives a package at the front desk of the penthouse. Inside is a single photograph of a young boy she left behind in hiding. The boy looks just like him, with the same sharp eyes and stubborn chin. Her heart stops as she realizes her secret has been found by the wrong people. The man she fled from is using the child to bait her into coming back. She realizes she has to make a choice: tell the man she loves the truth or walk into a trap to save her son. He returns home to find her pale and trembling, the photograph hidden under a cushion. He knows she is hiding something, but he doesn't push her, hoping she will trust him on her own. He tells her he has cleared a path for them to leave the country and start over where no one knows their names. He is willing to give up his empire, his money, and his power just to have a quiet life with her. It is the ultimate sacrifice for a man like him, and it makes her guilt even harder to bear. The rival families decide to strike while he is distracted by his heart. They stage a massive protest outside his building, using the chaos to sneak assassins into the service elevator. A massive firefight breaks out in the lobby, turning the marble floor into a battlefield. He fights with a desperation he has never felt before, knowing she is upstairs and vulnerable. He isn't fighting for territory or respect anymore. He is fighting for the only thing that makes his life worth living. He manages to hold them off, but he is wounded in the process. She finds him in the hallway, clutching his side as the elevator doors open. She screams and runs to him, putting his arm over her shoulder to help him into the apartment. As she cleans his wound, she realizes that he would literally die for her without a second thought. The weight of the secret becomes too much to handle, and she starts to cry, her tears falling onto his skin. She reaches for the hidden photograph and hands it to him. She tells him that he has a son, and that the boy is currently in the hands of their greatest enemy. He stares at the photograph of the boy for a long time, his face unreadable. The silence in the room is terrifying, more frightening than the gunfire from the hour before. She expects him to be angry or to feel betrayed that she kept this from him for 9 years. Instead, he reaches out and touches the image of the boy's face with a shaking finger. A single tear tracks down his rugged face, the first one she has seen him shed since they were teenagers. He looks at her and says that he finally understands why she stayed away for so long. The wound in his side is forgotten as he goes into a cold, calculated state of war. He calls every soldier he has, every contact in the government, and every favor he is owed. He tells them that this is no longer a business matter. It is a blood feud. He authorizes the use of every resource to find the location of the boy. The city of Seoul begins to shake as his influence reaches into every dark corner. He tells her to stay in the safe room, but this time she refuses, demanding to be part of the rescue. They discover that the boy is being held on a private cargo ship in the harbor, ready to be sent across the ocean. The man who took him is indeed the powerful official she feared, a man who believes he is above the law. He tells her that the law doesn't matter in the world he built, only loyalty and family. He arms himself with a heavy heart, knowing that he might not come back from this. He gives her a key to a safe deposit box with enough money for her and the boy to live forever if he fails. The assault on the harbor is a masterclass in tactical precision and raw fury. His men move through the shipping containers like ghosts, taking out guards with silent efficiency. He leads the way, driven by a father's instinct he didn't know he possessed until an hour ago. Every time he pulls a trigger, he thinks of the 9 years he missed with his son. He feels a connection to the boy he has never met, a pull of blood that guides him through the darkness. She follows behind him, her heart in her throat, praying they aren't too late. They reach the ship just as the engines begin to hum, the massive vessel preparing to depart. He boards the ship with a small team, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. He finds the official in a luxury cabin, holding the boy's hand while the child cries for his mother. The sight of his son's fear snaps something inside him, and he loses the coldness, replaced by a white-hot rage. He enters the room not as a businessman, but as a predator protecting his cub. The official realizes too late that he has made a fatal mistake. The confrontation is brief and violent, ending with the official begging for a mercy he never showed. He ignores the pleas, his eyes fixed only on the small boy who is staring at him with wide, familiar eyes. He lowers his weapon and kneels, making himself look smaller and less threatening to the child. He tells the boy that he is a friend of his mother and that he is here to take him home. The boy looks at him, sees the silver locket hanging from his neck, and realizes this is the man from his mother's stories. They walk off the ship together, the boy held tightly in his arms. She is waiting at the pier, and the reunion is a chaotic blur of tears and hugs. For a moment, the three of them form a circle that the rest of the world cannot touch. The sunrise begins to bleed over the horizon, lighting up the harbor in shades of gold and red. It looks like the beginning of a new world, but he knows that the consequences of this night are just beginning. He has killed a man of high status, and his life as he knows it is over. He knows that by morning, every police officer and government agent in the country will be looking for him. He has crossed a line that can't be uncrossed, even with all his money and power. He sits with her and the boy in a quiet, safe house, watching the sun come up over the trees. He tells her that they have to leave immediately, but he can't go with them. If he stays, he can draw the attention of the law away from her and the child, giving them a clean slate. She refuses to leave him again, saying they are a family now. He spends the afternoon transferring all his assets into her name through a series of offshore accounts. He ensures that she will be the most protected woman in the world, even if he isn't there to see it. He plays with the boy in the yard, teaching him how to throw a ball, trying to cram 9 years of fatherhood into a few hours. He sees himself in the boy's laugh and in the way he stands his ground. It is the happiest he has ever been, and the saddest he has ever felt, knowing it's temporary. The sirens begin to wail in the distance, a long, low sound that signals the end of the road. His scouts report that a massive tactical team is surrounding the area, and there is no way out for him. He looks at her and sees the woman he fell in love with all those years ago, still the only light in his dark life. He kisses her one last time, a long, desperate kiss that tastes like salt and goodbye. He hands her the keys to a hidden car in the garage and tells her to drive and never look back. She begs him to come with her, suggesting they hide in the mountains or flee by sea. He shakes his head, explaining that as long as he is with them, they are targets, but if he stays, the hunt ends with him. He tells her that he has lived a life of sin and violence, and this is his chance to do one good thing. He wants his son to grow up in the light, not in the shadows of the mafia. He watches them get into the car, his heart breaking into a million pieces as the engine starts. The car disappears down the dirt road just as the first black tactical vans pull into the driveway. He walks out onto the front porch, alone and unarmed, wearing his best suit. He lights a cigarette and watches the sunset, the smoke curling into the air. He looks at the locket in his hand one last time before tucking it into his breast pocket, right over his heart. He isn't afraid of what is coming because he knows his family is finally safe. He has won the only war that ever mattered to him. The police move in with their shields up, shouting commands that he doesn't bother to follow. He just sits there, a king without a kingdom, looking at peace for the first time in 9 years. The screen fades to black as the sound of a single car driving on a highway fills the speakers. It is the sound of a woman and a child moving toward a future that he bought for them with his life. The long wait is finally over, and though he couldn't keep her, he managed to save her. A year later, A woman and a young boy walk along a beach in a faraway country where the sun always shines. The boy finds a small silver locket buried in the sand, identical to the one his mother wears around her neck. She takes it from him, her eyes filling with a bittersweet smile as she looks out at the ocean. She tells the boy a story about a man who was a king, a man who waited a lifetime just to say hello.